still no beat here there.
Well, hello all, and welcome to the first edition of Drops the Mic, the official podcast of the POW Solution. Now, if you're asking yourself, what is the POW Solution, then you can head over to my website at www.powsolution.com and check it out. Now, this month, the month of February, Powsolution celebrates its 4th anniversary. And that's a pretty big milestone for me, the creator of Powsolution. This month of February also is, of course, Valentine's Day, President's Day, Black History Month, but more importantly, it is the month that the Black Panther film debuts in theaters. As a matter of fact, the release is tonight. So I decided I wanted to kick off my first show by discussing Black Panther and just kind of getting my thoughts in before all the hoopla begins. Now, I saw a meme on Instagram, basically a graphic that stated that Black Panther is not a black movie and Black Panther is not a win for black people. I mean, we're celebrating it because it's wonderful, but essentially it's not a quote-unquote black win. Now, this graphic also talked about Barack Obama and African American people winning awards is also not a win for black people, but we'll dissect that later. Now, I actually agree with that sentiment. Technically, Black Panther is not a black movie. Technically, I don't see it as a black progress, like a progression for all of us collectively. And don't get me wrong, I still feel like we should support it, and the empowering depictions of black people should be celebrated. However, unless we use this film as some sort of inspirational catalyst, I cannot classify it as black progress. The film was not created by black people, and the profits will not be used to financially improve the black community. But sidebar, if you do buy Black Panther merchandise, please try to support black-owned businesses and black-owned shops. So back to my point, black accomplishment within our mainstream culture is noteworthy. And like I said, I'm all for the celebration of black excellence. But the idea of black advancement within pop culture somehow bringing us the equality we desire in this country is a myth. You know, we as a people are attractive, creative, artistic, resourceful, but it's almost like we're using these gifts to charm our way into white America's heart or to prove something to those who oppose us. Capitalism is an exploitive system. That means this system is currently consuming our brilliant black creation. Black creation we could be using for ourselves and our own benefit, but they're using it for themselves and their benefit. And by benefit, I mean capitalism is appropriating our genius for their profit. And they're whitewashing it also for easier non-black consumption. So to me, the idea of giving energy to a system that ultimately works against you and thinking that it's going to somehow produce this desired result is counterproductive. And the proof is we have to work twice as hard to get half as much. That's how we know it's counterproductive. We ultimately, I think, as a people are confused about what black progress is. We have misinterpreted triumphs within black culture as collective wins for our community. So what is black progress? Let's talk about it. Now, 9 days into 2018, Shaun King reported that police shot and killed 32 people already, including Charles Smith Jr., an unarmed 17-year-old motorist from Little Rock, Arkansas. Ramsey Orta, who is unjustly serving 4 years, basically is just being retaliated against by the NYPD for filming the police killing of Eric Gardner back in 2014, was just like thrown into a solitary like housing unit for like 60 days. And then also, I just read a report about a 32-year-old member of the South Carolina Black Lives Movement that was shot and killed in New Orleans. My point, Black men are still being incarcerated and annihilated at an alarming rate. You know, a focused plan to weed out white supremacy and white supremacist organizations out of the police force, and a unified movement to overhaul the current fraternal order of police, that would be Black progress. That would secure our children's future and make sure that so many mothers like myself don't have to worry about the mortality of our young Black men. You know, as many as 60 of Baltimore public schools, 1/3 of the city's total, went without sufficient heat earlier this year, despite the fact that in past audits, it was revealed that millions of dollars in boiler repairs, window and door upgrades, and other critical work was paid for, verified, and inspected, but ultimately not done. Urban cities across the nation that house millions of underserved children of color are still subject to rampant corruption that largely go unchecked and essentially keep our children in an endless cycle of poverty and violence. Perhaps a nationwide support system for Black families who want to homeschool, or an emergency intervention program to address the current prison to pipeline crisis. That would be Black progress. The creation of safe Black spaces, Black group economics, that's considered Black progress. Black progress is the forward movement and the total liberation of all Black people, not just our wealthiest, most notable, and most quote-unquote talented. According to Dr. James Smalls, these things like nationhood, politics, economics, culture, that's what give human beings our beingness. But we as African Americans, we have this dysfunctional dichotomy, right? Where everything we do, all of our systems that serve us, ultimately are entangled within colonialism and white supremacy. And that's why we're enamored with Black Panther. This idea of them having their own, Wakanda being its own self-serving, self-standing, self-functioning system. And it's not about achieving, in white spaces. It's not about white validation. It's ultimately about us having our own. So instead of indulging in this fantasy, we can make it a reality. The strength of Wakanda is what's exciting. If this film was about a solo superhero like Batman, we wouldn't be so, just taken by it and so smitten with it. We seeing ourselves as not only courageous, but unified is what activates us. So hopefully we keep that in mind, remain mindful when consuming this film today, and, really start to think about how we can make that fantasy our reality. Thank you for joining me for my first ever micro podcast on Achor FM. And right now, I'm just going to take a step back and drop the mic.